My name is Will Powers, and I'll be the moderator for this webinar. I'm joined by today's presenters, Travis Hudson, Associate Supply Chain Process Engineer, and Carl Rush, the Bioconvergence Supply Chain Manager. Today they will be discussing how to perform a shipping lane qualification for development materials and how to create value while mitigating risk. After they present, we'll have a Q&A session, so please submit your thoughts and questions using the questions pane on the sidebar of the Navigator. Also, I want to remind everyone that we will be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to one lucky winner, as well as a risk assessment questionnaire to all of our audience members to implement in their own firm's decision-making process. Watch your email for those notifications, which will include a link to a recording of this webinar for your future reference. All right, to get us started, I have a question for the audience. With regard to your current projects, what factors do you consider when determining the need to perform a shipping lane qualification? You can submit your answer on the screen. The answer choices that you can select from are product value, quantity of product shipped, industry best practices, number of shipping lanes utilized, or regulatory compliance reasons. You can select more than one. We'll pause for a moment while everyone enters their answers. All right, we'll go ahead and close the poll now and calculate the results. Well, 36% of the respondents felt the number of shipping lanes they deal with was considered, and a similar number of respondents indicated that the regulatory compliance plays a big role in the shipping lane qualification need. A slightly lesser percentage indicated that product value was a consideration. So those three were the top responding needs. Okay, we'll see how this ties in with our discussion today. I'll now turn it over to Carl.
Thank you, Will. We are pleased to share with you today our approach to shipping lane qualification for development materials. Is it worth the time and cost to perform a shipping lane qualification for your pharmaceutical products? Many companies have answered yes to this question with regards to their commercial materials. The main reason for this being the high volume of products and the repeated use of set shipping lanes. Isn't the risk just as great for development materials whose quantities are extremely low and of great value? If a shipment consisting of a large percentage of the firm's stock were negatively affected, wouldn't the impact be similar from a patient safety standpoint, not to mention the financial and progress setback ramifications? Another argument against performing this type of study for development materials is the possibility for changes to occur. Can this type of study be performed in a way that provides value and remains relevant throughout the development lifecycle of the product? All of these notions must be considered as part of the risk assessments a firm must perform in order to determine the need for performing a shipping lane qualification. Is it worth it to your firm? The answer is yes. How much is having peace of mind worth by knowing your product is traveling safely to its destination? How much is avoidance of temperature excursions and the subsequent quality events worth? How much is a batch of material worth that otherwise might have to be rejected? The resources spent up front can significantly reduce resources required throughout the life of your project. Additionally, dependent on your product, a qualified shipping program may be required by some regulatory groups or other agencies in order to move your materials through the supply chain.
We'll pause for a moment and conduct another short poll with this question. What would you consider to be the main reason for not performing a shipping lane qualification for development materials? Once again, you can submit your answer on the screen. For this poll, you can select only one option. The choices are: haven't heard of this before, don't know how, don't have the money, regulatory requirements are not well defined, or imminent changes in lanes, fill volumes, or other variables. We'll pause for a moment while everyone enters their answers. We'll close the poll now and look at the results. The results are fairly well spread out. The two highest respondent categories, one that where funds were not available for shipping lane qualification work, and 30% also required that changes in lane, fill volumes, and other areas were imminent or so frequent that completing a qualification was futile. Some of the respondents indicated they weren't aware of this need at all. And the remaining categories talked about lacking know-how to conduct the qualification studies and that the regulatory requirements hadn't been defined well enough just yet. With that said, we'll continue the presentation now. Carl?
Let's first set up a test scenario and take a look at the variables to be considered when creating a shipping lane qualification protocol for development materials. Let's assume there's a product in the development pipeline that is required by a regulatory agency to have their shipping lanes qualified prior to moving the product. Temperature-controlled shipping solutions must be designed and qualified using actual payload configurations and ambient temperature profiles. The products consist of bulk API and finished drug product, both of which have different storage and shipping temperatures. Products are also low volume and high value and will traverse different lanes. Each shipment will consist of a large percentage of the available stock of products, so excursions or loss will have a large degree of detrimental impact. Supply chain partners must be identified and utilized during the qualification process. All created procedures must be transferred to supply chain partners in an effective and comprehensible manner. Finished drug product requires that secondary packaging be designed to ensure vial safety and maximize payload area of shipping solution. I'd like to now turn it over to Travis to go over the details of our approach.
Thanks, Carl. The first action item is to design a shipping solution. We begin by answering a few questions. What is our required shipping temperature? In this scenario, there are two different temperatures. The bulk API will be required to ship frozen, while the finished drug product will ship refrigerated. What would our transit time look like? Using ground transport and in locations, we determined that 72 hours would be sufficient time to reach destination for both products. What are our range of payload sizes? Payloads are such that a small parcel shipper will be required to meet the minimum payload, and a few small shippers will meet the requirements of the maximum payload. What does our thermal profile look like for both of these lanes? While the two lanes are different, the same method of transport will be used, so the thermal profiles of each lane are very similar. Based on these considerations, we are able to identify pre-existing shipping solutions which can be qualified using actual payloads and thermal profiles. This will save us a great deal of time and cost over starting from scratch and designing a custom solution. The ability to evaluate the existing shipping solutions qualification reports against our required qualification time and thermal profile allows us to narrow our available options rather quickly and ensure with a great deal of certainty that the solutions will pass testing when our product-specific criteria are introduced. We are also able to meet the maximum and minimum payload requirements for each product by utilizing one shipping solution per product. While the minimum payloads are low enough volume to require a small parcel size shipper, the maximum payloads are such that utilizing 3 to 4 of the parcel size solutions will meet the required maximum shipment quantity. Being able to use one solution to meet both the maximum and minimum payloads also saves time and cost over developing multiple solutions for each product. Obviously, the qualification is to prove that your shipping program will succeed, but you want to be certain of that before you begin to minimize time and resources required. By using your firm's internal knowledge and metrics, you should select partners to be used that have performed at a high level during normal operations. This will cut down on the possibility of needing to change partners midstream and reperform certain aspects of the qualification, again saving time and money. It is also important to include all partners on the planning and design of the qualification to ensure all parties are aware of what is required of them when the time comes. Partners are experts in their areas and may be able to provide optimal processing options for your consideration. Ensuring the best plan up front can also cut back on time and resources required. If at the time the shipping qualification is performed, when the project is in its early phases, contracts are not in place with all potential partners, it could mean that we cannot perform the study by shipping to the actual end location. By maintaining strong relationships with service providing partners, you may be able to leverage a partner site and personnel close nearby to aid in performing the study. This will allow you to continue the shipping qualification and at the same time replicates the actual lane for testing. Whether during the qualification execution or in preparation for go-live shipments, it is extremely important to ensure that all parties are clear on their responsibilities and have access to the appropriate procedures. Depending on your partner's level of experience with these types of processes, it may be necessary to create additional training aids to ensure accurate performance of all processes. One option for transferring this information might be to make an on-site visit to perform training or to create training videos as a means to create a visual replication of certain aspects of the process. Generally, the pack out of the shipping solution is an area where visual guidance or face-to-face training is beneficial. During the development phase for pharma products, there is always a greater chance of changing variables. This has been one of the deterrents for performing a shipping qualification, as the changes might impact the relevance of the study. There are, however, ways to plan for these changes so that they will not impact the results of the qualification. In our test scenario, our secondary product packaging design should take into consideration that the product fill volumes might change, and therefore the primary packaging could be impacted. We can make sure that our overall payload configurations do not change by designing the secondary packaging with replaceable inner components to accommodate the possible change in vial or container size. Considering this up front allows us to qualify our shipping solution against predetermined max and min load sizes, while at the same time maintaining payload configuration regardless of changing fill volumes and container size. Another way to plan for change is to qualify your shipping solution against a thermal profile that is more extreme than your actual lane's profile. If your shipping solution can maintain temperature during extreme conditions, it is possible that the justification could be made to use the same solution even if your shipping lanes change. Carl, would you like to share some of the takeaways with us now?
Thank you, Travis. It is important to look at the option of performing a shipping lane qualification for your development products. All products are at risk while traveling through the supply chain, not only commercial products. If the study is performed in a manner that mitigates risk while at the same time limiting the required resources, the cost-to-benefit ratio can be extremely favorable. The study can also be performed in a manner that takes into account the possibility for change, which makes the study relevant even when some variables may change. Having the foresight to perform this type of study gives you your development program a much greater chance of success. Mitigating risk in this way protects products that might otherwise be susceptible to detrimental conditions in transit. The resources lost when products require investigation or even rejection can be saved by being proactive and creating a qualified process for safely moving them through the pipeline.
All right, with that, I'd like to open up to questions. We have received some already. As a reminder, if you do have a question, please submit it through the questions pane on the navigation bar. Let's jump right in. The first question submitted reads, you mentioned maintaining payload configurations to justify your shipper qualification being valid even after fill volumes changed. Were you still able to maintain max and min payloads within the qualified range?
Yeah, good question, Will. What we were trying to accomplish by designing the secondary packaging such that the inner components could be modified is maintaining that product configuration, keeping the same size, shape, product voids. After that's been accomplished, we really go back to the qualification, look at those maximum end loads, and then determine the number of units that we can ship per shipping solution based on that, so that we're sure to stay within those the qualified range.
Great. Our next question is, with this type of qualification, would you still test against both summer and winter profiles?
Yes, you would, Will. We would highly recommend conducting the study in the same manner as you would your commercial products. Exposing your products and exposing your shipping solutions and your partners' processes to both the profiles will help ensure year-round success of your program.
All right, thanks for that. Our next question reads, your focus has been on temperature and time. How about security?
That's a good point. I think we were focusing here mainly on dealing with development materials and how to set yourself up for those changing aspects, how to make your qualifications still relevant. Obviously, in today's society, security is going to be a big focus, and you're going to want to put a lot of attention on that when you do conduct the study. I think that would be standard for a development qualification as well as commercial. So we may not have touched on that, but that is a good point, and that would definitely be a big focus of your qualification when the time comes.
All right, thanks, Travis. Are we going to wait one more minute for another question to come in? All right, we have another question. It reads, have you used risk methodologies or assessments to identify transportation lines as being either high, medium, or low risk?
Absolutely, and as we alluded to earlier, we're going to make available kind of a risk assessment questionnaire that you can use to do the same type of thing. Basically, that assessment, as you'll see, and we can kind of go through it here, gets into the characteristics of your product. I mean, how much quantity do you have? How valuable is it? What kind of stability data? Obviously, if you have really robust stability data that shows there's low impact, your product's going to be at a little bit lower risk. Same thing with your shipping solution. Was it kind of qualified using a thermal profile that's right on the edge of your actual lane, or did you go and kind of do with a more extreme thermal profile, gain that level of risk with your products? And then again with your process and partners, what kind of control do you have? What kind of relationships are in place? You're going to see if the partnership's not quite as strong, you're going to see maybe a little bit higher risk. If there's great communication and you've got great metrics that show how you've worked together in the past, that's going to be a little bit lower risk. So by evaluating your product, your solution, and then your process and partners, you can kind of get a good idea there of where you want to focus on maybe more than other areas. But yes, definitely use risk methodology and risk assessments. You can reference, I believe it's PDA Technical Report number 54 that talks a lot about quality risk mitigation as a good start for getting that conversation started.
Thanks, Travis. Another question has come in. How long would it take to qualify a shipping lane?
That is really without performing the risk assessments and looking at the details of each individual product, lane, and solution. Does the solution need developed? It's really product specific, situation specific, how long it should take. Conducting the study itself doesn't take that long. It just depends on how much prep work and if, like I say, solutions, partners, all that needs to be identified. It's really variable. If you want to follow up with the email there on the screen and give some more details, we could probably follow up and give you a better idea. Like I say, it's really scenario specific, but it can be done in a pretty quick, efficient way.
We have another question. What is the budget I should have for one lane to be qualified?
Again, I would have to mirror my answer to the last question, just depending on what kind of resources it takes and how much work has to be done up front. The actual qualification can be the easy part. Just depends on what your needs are as far as identifying partners and solutions and whatnot. It's really situation specific. Again, we can, if you want to reach out, there's a phone number, email there. We can possibly discuss and give you a better idea if we have some specifics.
Thanks, Travis. Oh, we got a comment. I may have misspoke on the technical report reference. Looks like that was, which one's that say? 58, not 54. Thank you, whoever caught me on that. Another question has been submitted. How do you feel about temperature monitoring once a shipping qualification has been performed? Would it still be recommended? That's a great question. I'm glad whoever asked that asked. I would say absolutely. It's been proven through industry guidance that's best practice. Regulatory bodies are looking pretty hard at that. Even though you've performed the shipping qualification and you know that you're going to have a pretty high success rate and you've maybe even been able to prove that in the past, be aware that there can always be a one-off. There can always be a situation that's out of your control where products can be exposed to temperatures that you weren't expecting, and you could have an excursion. Without those monitoring devices, you may not have any indication to know that that's happened. At a minimum, I would say you need to, based on those risk assessments, figure out a periodic monitoring schedule. But yes, monitoring is definitely recommended, I would say. I will see if anyone has any more questions. All right. I'd like to thank both Travis and Carl for presenting, and I'd like to thank the audience for joining us today.